Fáilte a cháirde Gael. How are you getting on? It's myself, Anlo Carolan, and I am on the beach doing a seaside broadcast for this little introduction for the chat with Taz Kelleher and Geraldine Carton, aka the Useless Project. I thought it was Use Less Project, but it's useless. Geraldine and Taz have this long-standing collaboration going on, making everybody more aware about various aspects of sustainability in fashion and food and general day-to-day practices, which I've been following for quite a long time. So it was really nice to have them on the podcast and have the chats with them. I really enjoy keeping up to date with what they're doing because they make these wee videos together sometimes, which are really funny, but also talking about very important things, and make lots of useful infographics and resources. And Geraldine loves memes that she does a big stream of on Mondays, Monday memes, which I enjoy following. And they organise events as well. And I had a really good chat with them, so I think you're going to enjoy it. Because I'm outside and I'm going for a dander, I haven't got a huge amount more to say, except for thanks very much to all of the patrons who have been supporting the podcast, keeping the show on the road over on patreon.com/Rebel Matters. So thanks very much to everyone who's been doing that. We've been having a great year so far with all the episodes that we've made. Met some lovely new people, made some new friends. We've got class episodes lined up and some more plans for the rest of the year, all made possible by our patrons. So if you want to become a patron, go over to patreon.com/Rebel Matters, and you can see the various tiers of support and our corresponding mini gestures of gratitude that we'll send out to you as a small thank you for your support. This little going outside for the introductions has been inspired by the Adam Buxton podcast. I just thought I would take to the seashore to record them rather than sitting in the house. So I hope that's okay. I'm just here watching two kite surfers doing their thing in the waves, getting some serious airtime. Looks class. Anyway, that's it. Enjoy this chat with Taz and Geraldine, and speak to you later. Slan. Thanks a million for coming on to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having us.
We are so excited.
Genuinely excited, not just saying excited, actually excited.
First of all, is it the Useless Project or the Use Less Project?
Now, this is the ultimate question. Is it chicken or an egg? So we would say the Useless Project, and it's kind of centering around, and you're going to get the whole elevator pitch now, that, you know, that kind of feeling of uselessness that people feel, and that, you know, a lot of the solution to the kind of climate crisis and climate chaos and all the issues is using less. So if we just use less resources, if we use less energy, then that would kind of minimize a lot of the bigger kind of problems. But, you know, we kind of had that talk of, are we going to be the use less project or the useless project. And it kind of just it was easier to roll off the tongue, the useless. And we felt like it was a little bit like, oh, tongue in cheek, like, oh, calling yourself useless. But you can call us whatever you want. You can call us John and Jim. You don't mind.
So I was sitting there going, that's a class name, the Useless Project. And I was just going around being like, did you see that Useless Project? And then when you messaged me there a week or two ago, and then I was like, hang on a second. I was like, it's the Use Less Project. I was like, I've been going around calling them the Useless Project for so long, and I've had proper guilt. I was like, no.
Yeah. You know what's so funny that when we change the name, like you can imagine any kind of company changing their name, there's a lot of thought has got into it. You know, they're thinking about the pros and cons of this name and like why it works and how it might not work. Anyway, so we made the announcement to launch the new name. And of course, no offense, but of course there was a man got in touch with us, slid into our DMs. It's like, hi girls, just want to let you know there's actually quite a few negative connotations with the word useless. People might not realize it's useless. And I was like, yeah, we already knew that was supposed to happen. And it was so we represented the useless feeling that we all feel. Didn't appreciate it, but appreciate you bringing it up.
How did you just end up getting into the world of sustainability in the first place?
Okay,
you ready?
Here we go.
Drum roll, please.
Go for it.
Geraldine, start the pitch.
So effectively, we always kind of say that, you know, we didn't come out of the womb with placards saying sustainability, you know, now we all have to change and like anti-fast fashion. Especially, I mean, we'll talk about our two kind of perspective intros into the world of sustainability, but like me, I have to say I grew up in a world, like I've got four sisters, you know, all of us would have been kind of keen fashion followers, but like we would have been getting the Boohoo's, the Pretty Little Things, the Zara every other week. I was definitely like, you know, in that bubble of kind of consumerism. Whilst I started off my kind of education, or you know, third level education doing social work. I mean, I really wanted to like do something good in the world. Actually, I had originally wanted to be a nurse, if we're going to go way back. And I had that on my CAO and I was all ready to do nursing and then all the different colleges. And then I remember it was like a few weeks until the CAO had to be submitted. And my mom came back from playing golf. She's like, oh God, Geraldine, will you look at my foot? It's so painful. And I said, oh my God, can I come in and help you? And I had a look at it and it was this huge bulbous blister. And I was like, for a second, I was like, get that away from me. I never want to deal with, see anything like that again. And I was like, right, I'm going to have to make a quick U-turn away from the nursing idea. So still wanted to do something to help people, the world in some way. So I was like, hey, social work. I went to Trinity and did that for 2.5 years. And then it just wasn't working. Basically, I'm too sensitive, and find that I worked with the traveling community, with people with special needs, and with the elderly community, and I just was getting too sucked into each and every person's story, and it was really, really hard. And I also would have been like that little bit more creative. So I ended up turning around basically and starting a course called Creative and Cultural Industries in DIT, which effectively, for all purposes, is doing like transition year 4 degree. It was like all these random subjects mixed, mashed into one, like marketing, and then kind of French, and then film studies.
Knitting.
Yeah, honestly, there was anything you could imagine. So then I got into social media, and then I got into writing. So when I was talking about, I was part of this consumer culture, I ended up writing for a women's fashion magazine. So that's like, knee to neck deep in this kind of level of consumerism, this kind of consumers culture that I would be trying to rage against now. And so I worked there for a year, and then kind of, I suppose that itch that needs to be scratched to do something good kind of came at me again. And I was like, right, maybe riding my bum lifting leggings isn't what I was supposed to, what I was put on this planet to do. So it was all a big case of serendipity, because I had been following Taz. She didn't know me, but I knew her because I was writing a lot about podcasts. Taz was working as a podcast producer, and it was the day that I was like, right, I'm going to hand in my notice. I'm going to do something positive. Go back to my roots. I don't know what it's going to be. It was a kind of a big leap of faith when I said it to my editor, because she assumed I had some plan in mind of why I was leaving the job, and I didn't at all. But it was that evening that I saw this post that Taz put up being like, hey guys, I really want to organize like it was a charity shop crawl, was it at the time?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So basically, to give a bit of a background in my story, I was kind of always into sustainability, but not, again, without even realize, not because I was an environmentalist per se. I was kind of interested in secondhand clothing. I love charity shopping, and like we always say, charity shopping is like 30% bargain, 30% for the planet, and 30% like smoke. And I was the smoke. I was doing it for the smoke. I was doing it for like somebody saying, "Where did you get your dress?" And I'd say, charity shop, €2. Don't worry about it. But basically what was happening, I was big into charity shops, and I was producing podcasts at the time. And from producing podcasts, I had like a little bit of a following online, like not a big following at all. But Geraldine, as she mentioned, was writing about the podcast I produced. So Geraldine followed me. Yeah. And every single week on my Instagram, I was doing like a charity shop sneak peek. So I was going to an area of Dublin and like showcasing a selection of the clothes that could be found in each of the charity shops. Because like they tend to be in clusters in Dublin in particular. Like if you go to Fisborough, there's like 5 charity shops. On Camden Street, there's like 5 charity shops, blah, blah. And that was kind of getting a bit of traction. And I saw that there was an appetite there for secondhand clothing. So I was like, feck it. It'd be great to organise some sort of a swap shop to get these people together. So my intention was to get 10 people into a pub, sit in a little snug somewhere over a couple of pints of Guinness, everybody throw 5 items of clothing that they're no longer wearing onto the table, and everyone else take 5. So it's just kind of like a swap amongst ourselves. And that's when I literally put that up on my Instagram, and Geraldine messaged me that evening. So it's so funny, but we started our company in the first 10 minutes of meeting each other. Like we did not know each other before we started the Useless Project.
And also very nearly, like nothing happened very nearly, because I like messaged Taz, but like I'm quite passionate, as you might kind of gather from the way I kind of speak about stuff, but I get like really like, all in, it's all or nothing. And so when I saw that she put up this post, and sorry, I should say as well, like my interest in sustainable fashion wasn't again in necessarily sustainability, but like I love the idea of secondhand clothing and like the memories that they carry. I kind of get quite sentimental about clothing in particular, so I would have loved going to flea markets. I'd gone to a few swap shops, loved them. So when I saw this post that Taz put up, I was like, that's the thing that's been calling me. I didn't even realize. So hounded, when I say hounded Taz with messages, and we were supposed to meet up at one point and then we didn't, and Taz recently found a notebook that she had at the time, and it had the date that we were supposed to meet, and then it was saying like meeting Geraldine Carton, and then it was crossed out and wrote underneath, she wrote too hungover. So we were like, so then I was like, oh gosh, but anyway, we ended up meeting up the following week, and we just clicked. Like we really got on so well, and so our first ever event was a charity shop crawl, and it's just so funny to think back on it now, because we thought that, like, I don't know what we thought, that we thousands of people who we wanted to come on a charity shop crawl, but we had six people came on the charity shop
and
crawl.
We were elated that there were 6 people there. So basically what we did was we just brought a group of 6 people on a trail of charity shops in Dublin, and we ended up at the end having a couple of drinks and chatting to all of them. But like, if you could contain the excitement that we had after that event and put it in tablet form, like all wars would be ended in the world, because we were like, that was just, I haven't felt fulfillment like after that event where we brought 6 strangers on a trail of charity shops. It was kind of just like, it just clicked.
We should also mention that it was an absolute disaster of an event, because it was 6 people, okay, very small group. It was lovely, really, really lovely people, but it was like torrential, like apocalyptic rain throughout, or like halfway into the trail. So, we were bringing people into one shop to another shop. And when people, we'd go into one shop, they'd buy some stuff, and, say one charity shop might give them in like the clothing in a plastic bag, but some places would give it in a paper bag. So then we were like running to the next shop, getting like, lashed on, absolutely soaked. And then people were arriving with these paper bags that had once held the clothing that they had just bought in the shop before, but because it was so wet, it disintegrated, and the clothes were like strewn out on the path, and they were running with these baseless bags. So it was just anyway.
When was that?
That was in November 2018. So that kind of then, I suppose, Taz talking about how excited we were after. I feel like that was us kind of, I don't know, like having the first taste of the drug and then being like, no, okay, we're hooked. And immediately. And so from there, we kind of continued. Like we still had our own, like I was doing freelance writing, Taz was doing freelance podcast producing. And so we were kind of organizing these events on the side.
Sorry, 1 second. My landlord's at the door. 2 seconds.
No, you're right.
That little snapping, let me know this evening.
Okay, get on.
And I'll fix that tomorrow.
Cheers. I don't know if you can hear it, but my extractor fan is like going dunk, dunk, dunk in the background. So he was trying to fix it. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
I see.
Okay, where were we? We were saying about the...
We were kind of at the end of that spiel anyway, to be honest.
We could have gone on for hours.
That was 2018 when you started the Sustainable Fashion Dublin, and you just kind of like got on the road as such. And did you just do that for about 2 years then?
Yeah, so basically the first event was just before Christmas, and then as Geraldine said, we were kind of doing it as a side gig. Like we weren't making any money from it, we were just doing it for the love of it, and did a couple of charity shop crawls. Then we started doing swap shops, and then it really started snowballing to a kind of a point where in 2019 in the summertime we quit our jobs. Well, we were freelance anyway, but we put all of our time and energy into Sustainable Fashion Dublin, and it became our full-time gig. And we kind of say that sustainable fashion is almost like the gateway drug into sustainability. So we had all of these people coming to swap shops and, upcycling workshops and sewing classes that we were running weekly, and there was an appetite there for more. And as we became more and more interested in sustainability, we realized that there's so many different causes, there's so many different kind of like facets of sustainability that people just need a bridge to help them get there. So we started doing loads with food waste, teaching people how to compost, repurpose scraps, how to make their own nut milks, and just started doing loads more workshops. And that's kind of the way it's been for the last 2 years, up until coronavirus. We do loads of webinars as well. We give webinars to schools and businesses about all things sustainability. But yeah, it's been for the last 2 years. Yeah, 2.5 years.
So is the webinars and the workshops and stuff like that, is that how you basically make a living from the project?
Yeah, exactly. So we were obviously kind of devastated when coronavirus hit, because our main income had been giving these talks to school and businesses, and then also hosting events. So events immediately wiped out. There's no kind of opportunities for them anymore for what we thought was going to be 3 weeks. Lol, 3 weeks. Get out of here, absolute jokesters then. So then we had to kind of figure out how to, continue the webinars and talks to bring it onto like an online platform, because that really is, I'd say, 70% of our income. We would do some kind of branded work now through our Instagram page, which would be kind of just kind of ticking, I suppose. Our entire income then was between the branded stuff but mostly the webinars. So yeah, we would continue to do them via Zoom, and it's just it's been an interesting experience, because I suppose going into schools and businesses, you can imagine we would try to like bounce off people and have a bit of crack as we're kind of dishing out the information and trying to drum sustainability into people's ears, but via Zoom, I mean, you're effectively giving or spewing out these jokes to a blank wall. You're getting nothing in return. It's very much, I would say, character building. Yeah. Because you really have to just kind of, keep your energy up against all odds, because you're getting zero back.
And the way with sustainability, as you were mentioning there, it's such a broad, it's not really one topic really. It's like fashion, food, the environment. Every facet of life probably has an element of sustainability or non-sustainability to it. How do you balance that? Because I even find it with the podcast now. If we, for example, something happened up in Belfast the other day where there was a memorial for the 29-year anniversary of a shooting that happened on the Armagh Road, and the cops went in really heavy-handed and ended up arresting one of the survivors. And when I seen that, I was like, right, we need to share this on the social media. But then it just kind of consumed me for the day. I was like, oh, people need to hear about this. And he'd write something about it. I'm going to check in and I'm going to make sure if anybody's commented, I'm going to get back to them. And then it's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, where did that day go? I was like, I've been kind of checking in with Instagram there all day, on and off or whatever. And even when we're putting out the episodes, it's just because the social media is kind of the world's window to the podcast, that sometimes it can become a little bit overwhelming, and then we end up becoming martyrs to the podcast in a way. So we've really had to work to try and balance that and make it so that we're not martyrs of the podcast or to Instagram or whatever. And I'm guessing that it's kind of somewhat similar with sustainability in that it's everything and it's never ending. It's not like you're going to wake up someday and then sustainability is not going to be an issue anymore, or not going to be something you're passionate about. So how do you balance the two things?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that is a process for sure. When we first started this, it was a lot more difficult. I think, we always say that knowledge is power. Knowledge, it's amazing to know all of these things, but it's also such a hindrance, knowing what we know. I can never go into a shop and buy a pair of underwear. I have to order them from an organic, retailer or whatever. It is knowing what we know. It can be quite difficult, and it can be quite a weight on our shoulders, and it can make life a bit difficult too, and it got to a stage where I think both of us will agree, when we were really in the depths of it and we really truly believed it was everybody's individual actions and every single person on this planet was responsible for their consumption and their carbon footprint and being sustainable and stuff, we weren't nice people to be around. You know, like my family used to hate when I came home because I used to go through the recycling bin and give out to them, you know, or like I'd have friends who would be buying fast fashion and would, you know, if I asked them, if I said, I like your jumper, where'd you get it? They're like, oh, don't give out to me, which I wouldn't do. But, you know, it wasn't sustainable, like, you know, pardon the pun. And it's not sustainable to think like that, you know, like that kind of guilt, you know, that we feel, or maybe that you felt that you needed to spread the news of what happened in Belfast. It's like, that's, you know, it's only harming ourselves, really. Like, you need to harness that guilt and kind of like maybe, you know, talk about, like, try to use that to change governmental action or like policy or, you know, systemic change, etc. But like, there's only so much that we can do, you know, and I think it's realizing that and realizing that individual action is important. It's important to spread the word. It's important to talk about sustainability. It's important to, you know, recognize what's going on in the world. But like, we have to live our life. And the reality is that, you know, even the month of January, Geraldine and I took it off to kind of re-educate ourselves and listen to loads of podcasts, read some books, do some online courses. And it's depressing, Anna. Like, it's, you know, it's like working in sustainability. It's not sunflowers and stars, you know, it's bad news and bad news and bad news and bad news. And it's sometimes, you know, we question what's the point of doing what we're doing when, you know, the temperatures are still rising, sea levels are still rising, biodiversity loss is increasing, climate migration is increasing. And it's, you know, these are realities, you know, this is the reality of the situation. But I suppose what we try to do is, you know, is be that beacon of hope for people, that it isn't hopeless. So I don't know if we have a solution. It's definitely a process and it's something that we're working towards, but trying not to be beaten down by the bad, I think.
Yeah, big time. And like, I think what we always say to ourselves is that, like, thank God we still managed to have a laugh. Like, I mean, I definitely know I wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now by myself. And I think, Taz, you'd be the same. Like, you know, we do really try to have fun where at all possible we can. Like, every day we'll like just erupt into like fits of laughter, like uncontrollable, like, you know, that kind of like silent laughter, like, you know, just kind of heavy breathing, wheezing situations.
I wish you listeners could see Geraldine's facial expression right now. When I try to describe it, it's eyes closed,
putrid cheeks. But yeah, it's effectively, like we always say, like, you know, and we're definitely not making millions either. And like, you know, we've made it somewhat sustainable, you might say, in terms of just like actually having a monthly income and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, because the topics that we are looking into and that we're researching and we're telling other people about, they're very dark. If we weren't somehow able to balance that darkness with longevity, is that the word? Lightness, essentially, and like kind of just having a laugh, I don't think we'd be able to do what we do. And to be honest, I struggle to imagine how people keep going when they do kind of this like advocacy work by themselves. I would struggle to imagine it being sustainable, and I don't know how I would be able to do it if I didn't have someone just to even just kind of soundboard and be like, Jesus Christ, this is absolutely garbage what the world is going through right now. And like, oh my God, like I, you know, every once in a while I'll just be like, is there any point in what we're doing? And I suppose it's being able to interact with people, I think, is what keeps us going as well. Definitely, like, you know, like we said, from that first event, it was seeing how, you know, it can really lift people and make them feel that bit of empowered. I think that's what kind of spurred us on. And so it's, although, you know, social media can be this kind of vortex sucking out all your time, and it's so easy to, you know, like a black hole, but when you spend too much time in it, but actually it is what enables us to, you know, chat to people and share ideas and actually get inspiration from others. It's not like we're the only ones there to inspire, but I think that's what's kind of kept us going is this connection element between ourselves, but also I think between our community. And that's definitely something that's kind of spreading.
And I think as well, and in particular with like any sort of activism work, it's like, it's important to know when to turn off, but it's also important to like recognize that like you're trying, you know, it's like, even if, even if anybody listening to this buys fast fashion 5 times a month and over the course of the last 3 weeks is now buying twice a month, like amazing, brilliant. If you are going vegetarian once a week, brilliant. You know, if you are trying to educate yourself on biodiversity loss, like anything is brilliant. You know, it doesn't have to be this all or nothing approach. And that's something that we both have to recognize. You know, like I'd be so guilty getting, you know, a takeaway travel mug. And I know that you had an excellent episode with, is it Anya Gorman?
Yep.
And she talked about that as well. And like, the way like there's no like us feeling individually guilty for not having a keep cup is just ridiculous. You know, it's just nobody wins from that scenario. So just try to go easy on yourself.
The thing when you're working kind of for yourself, it really puts into sharp focus that your own energy and kind of vitality is a very finite resource in and of itself, and like to treat that kind of like in a sustainable way is so important. And like I've found that when it's putting stuff out there on Instagram sometimes can become a little bit kind of like overtaken or whatever, but then it's balanced up with doing things like this where we're just sitting and having a chat, or like just kind of enjoying the stuff that we're doing, which that really comes across in all the stuff that you guys have on the go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What I wanted to ask you is kind of related to that, is what are the biggest questions that you guys have to ask yourselves before you decide to put something out there?
Ooh, yeah, that's an excellent question. I don't think I've ever thought about that.
I think we're kind of good at being like, is it either informative, like is it actually going to bring someone a benefit in terms of like expanding their mind on a subject, or is it entertaining? Like, to be honest, I kind of, what I would try to always think of, because I would have had in that random course, I did the transition year degree. I did social media as part of it. And they always said, like, you have to, when you're posting things online or whatever, you have to think about like, well, is it actually of interest to you? Would you click on this? Would you want to know more about what you're talking about? And are you presenting it in a way that engages you? So it will engage your audience as well. So I genuinely would be kind of active in thinking like, oh God, is this funny? Like, for example, now it might seem very kind of silly, but like I'm very passionate about memes. Just as passionate as I am about sustainability, I am about memes. And I love a good meme.
50-50.
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like they give me energy, if anything else. But so we would make memes sometimes, and like I would always kind of, if I'm thinking of something, I'd send it to Taz, and if she's like, oh yeah, like haha, like that's kind of funny, I'd be like, but is it funny enough? Like it has to be actually LOL funny. And it seems again like silly, but I think so long as I actually can stand by what we're doing, whether it's actually factual and informative and helpful to someone, or else it is going to make them chuckle. At the very least, I want to chuckle. So I think that is something that I think underpins stuff.
And I think one thing that we're increasingly aware of is accessibility, making sure that what we're posting is accessible to a wide demographic of people, because, we have found the perception over the last few years is that sustainability is quite inaccessible to people, in particular sustainable fashion or sustainable food, with regards to maybe like sizing of clothing, maybe cost of sustainable food. People think that it's inaccessible because for the most part it can be. So when we post stuff, we're increasingly aware of making it like diverse and inclusive and accessible. Like they're kind of like three things that we're really trying to put more energy and focus into, because there's only so much good we can do by, preaching to, late 20s, early 30s white women like ourselves. It's like an echo chamber is no good. So we definitely want to try to become more accessible to everybody else.
Do you ever consider when you're putting stuff out, and this is like the very nature of your social media channels, whatever, is that like it's kind of like informative and it's a stream of information about like all different facets of sustainability? Do you ever consider like, are people think that we're just being really preachy here when we put this out?
Yeah. That's something that we definitely try to. It's kind of annoying because we put up a thing recently that it was a meme again, but it said like something about chatting sustainability to your family in a non-preachy way or something like that. And we got a message from somebody saying that whenever people talk about sustainability, by saying that they're being preachy, it kind of like discredits the actual cause of it, that like we can't talk about this thing without saying that it's preachy.
Effectively, like say, don't be like promoting how you're unpreachy, because that puts down people who are being perceived as being preachy. So she's like, anyone who talks about sustainability, whether it's in a non-preachy way or in a preachy way, should be kind of, supported and encouraged. So by you saying, guys, don't worry, we're doing it in a non-preachy way, you're actually putting down people who are being perceived as preachy, if you get what I mean. So she was like, can you stop saying we present sustainability alternatives in a non-preachy way? And I got what she meant. And I was like, okay, it's an interesting, I wouldn't have thought of by us saying this, we're inadvertently putting someone else down, or their own kind of efforts to educate. But at the same time, like I think that was one of the barriers to entry that I found with the sustainability movement before I got woke to the world. But when I was still sitting on my desk scrolling online fast fashion sites, I would have
looking up t-shirts that said #YasQueen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so woke. I think I would have like seen sustainability activists and stuff as like being like really like preachy, but also like just inaccessible. So like Taz was saying, either it's it's too expensive. I didn't have the money to be buying a €200 organic cotton shirt, but also then there was the kind of other end of the spectrum where people being like, you're ruining the world with your pen. It's made from lead. Like it's you, or like you should join me and only wear hemp underwear, or that granola you should be wearing that as trousers, not eating it for breakfast. Don't you realize that you're wasting? Like I just kind of felt that it was all so extreme. So my hair is absolutely bonkers.
I wish people could see. I wish people could see the actions.
But oh god, I kind of lost my train of thought.
But basically, that like it can seem inaccessible, and like the preachy thing. I think like the preachy thing is like the all or nothing. Like people think if we're giving out about methane production, methane with cows, for example, that like we are saying that you have to go vegan or there's no point even putting your foot on the sustainability ladder. And like in terms of like being preachy, that's something that we try not to do. We try to very much avoid the all or nothing thing. You don't have to dedicate your whole life to sustainability. You can, put your foot in the ladder. You can change an action this week, and that's fine. So like that's kind of like I feel like our parameter for being preachy or not preachy.
How are you getting on with the accessibility side of things? Do you feel like that the sustainability sort of movement is more accessible now than what it was, say, when you started off the project?
Yeah, I think as well we were kind of a little bit naive. Like I think we had found such a kind of a positive alternative in swap shops, in charity shops. And so when people were like, oh, like, what should we do if we can't afford, if we can only afford clothes from these fast fashion brands? And I was like, just go to a charity shop, or like just swap with your friends. But that was being so ignorant to the fact that, okay, first of all, say if you're saying like go to vintage shops, you get great style there, but people are historically smaller, in the years gone by. So there's such a smaller bandwidth of different sizes for people. So first of all, there's that. Then there's charity shops. You don't know what sizes are going to be in there. So if you fall in the realm of size 8 to size 14, that's fine. Like there's going to be lots of selection there for you, but you can't be certain that there's going to be, if you're say a size 18, size 20, you can't be certain that there's going to be an item of clothing there. And like how kind of upsetting it would be to go into a shop and just have to, kind of traipse around and just, realize that there's actually nothing for you there. And we've hosted plus size swap shops before in the past, and just hearing people's perspective, like, God, there's so many more kind of psychological factors at play with fashion. I mean, it's really, really personal, so it can kind of be quite upsetting. And then even say swap shops as an alternative, again, if you fall within this kind of easy to access size for when it comes to clothing, then you could go to a swap shop with quite a lot of confidence that there will be something there that you can at very least fit into, let alone like. But then why would you go to a swap shop only to find that there might not be clothing there in your size? So it was just hard because a lot of the alternatives that we were kind of saying go for that weren't actually accessible. So we had to kind of reassess our own kind of thinking. And then again with food, the organic movement and kind of argument, obviously it's got so much weight and it's really important, but again, totally inaccessible to people at lower incomes. So just trying to kind of look at what we're kind of preaching, or the message that we're sending out, and see how we can make sure it's as accessible as possible to as many people as possible is really, really important. And then I suppose just the other thing would be kind of the diversity thing. We found that was a little bit hard because we are two white women. So it was like, okay, because we like to kind of put forward our personality a lot of in terms of like the messaging and kind of give our own spin on things. But then it means that literally all it is two young white women at the center of our message. So we do try to kind of get other people on board to help share their perspective as well.
When I think back to whenever I was a teenager, I would never have gone into a charity shop. I never would have went into either Primark or Pennies either, because in my head that was just lame, and like me and all my mates just wanted to be wearing fresh Adidas gear.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's a big barrier to cross for a lot of people, because you're coming up against all of the marketing and the consumerism and the branding, which a lot of the time can be rooted quite deeply in people's psychology. That you have to wear though. If like for us, like it was kind of, like you want to be cool and stuff, and you want to be like the same as your mates. And
that's marketing, like, it's like that's the marketing of these fast fashion brands, and it's targeting young people, young women in particular, but young men as well. And it's selling the idea that if you buy these new clothes, you will be on trend, you will be liked, you will be popular, you will be cool. And then next thing you know, you go back into the high street shop 2 weeks later and there's a whole new set of clothes there, which is then sending the idea that what you own is already out of style, And like, that's marketing. That's done for a reason, Like that is clothing being like given this kind of holier thou effect that it can actually make you popular is what marketing is doing right now, and it's stopping people. I don't think more so recently. I think charity shops are kind of like cool now, I hope. Tell me
it's kids. Totally changed now, like, I think.
Yeah, but back in the day, like, I got my Debs dress in a charity shop and I didn't tell a soul, like, and nor would I, it was like granny gear for sure.
When you're describing the marketing there of the big kind of high street brands and the fast fashion brands, that's an enormous battle to be facing into. And I suppose that kind of relates back to the question I was asking you earlier on, is like, are you guys able to switch off at some point and be like, that's the day of work finished now, let's just leave that aside and get on with something that it hasn't got to do with kind of trying to change things?
I think I would struggle. I think I'm sure both of us would, in terms of, I think the social media is really what kind of keeps you tethered. I think we're getting better at it now. That I'd say definitely in the first kind of year, because like your hamsters, like, or like you're swimming and you're trying to stay afloat and trying to keep momentum going. So like if you don't post every single day, then people are going to forget about you. There's this kind of weird perception of that, I think, as well, among people who are trying to produce their content online. But I think we're getting better now, being like, look, we're okay. We've taken a month off. People haven't forgot that we existed, and I think it kind of. We've been able to mellow out a little bit on that front. That being said, I mean, on the weekends, I'll still be flat out listening to anything I can, like in terms of podcasts for sustainability, because I think as well, there's a fear that drives it, that I'm terrified that someone is going to ask me a question about something that I should know when it comes to sustainability or anything in line with that, and I'm going to just flatline and not have a clue what they're talking about. So it's a good thing, I think, as well, in parts, in that we're always constantly learning, and we're really open to learning and eager to learn, and we're open to the fact that we don't know everything. But at the same time, I'll be damned if I go into a podcast and they say, so tell me a little bit about this to do with sustainable fashion, and I'm like and like do that thing of like speak and nothing comes out. You're mouthing speaking, and then you're hoping that they think that the connection's gone. You're like, okay, I'm back, having Googled whatever it is, a question that they asked you. So it's a kind of struggle to be kind of always educating yourself and learning and kind of to cram that all into the working day, I think is a little bit tricky. Because there's so much to learn and there's so much information out there. But definitely, I think we've gotten that a little bit better at being like, you know what, we can't save the world. We're only two people.
I think as well, at the very beginning, we felt a huge responsibility, even to like reply to people, like on our Instagram following isn't that big compared to loads of people. It's small enough, but like any given week we'll get hundreds of messages, and we felt a huge responsibility to get back to every single person as soon as possible. Like, we still try our hardest to get back to everybody who messages us, but like that can be so incredibly time consuming, and it's hard because people are messaging us and saying they went into a charity shop and they found an amazing dress, thanks for introducing us, or they tried the nut milk recipe that we posted, thank you so much. And we want to express our gratitude for them for following us and supporting us and getting involved, but at the same time we have to kind of like value that we can't spend hours and hours every single week sending these personalized messages to Jimmy, Joe, Fred and Laura, because
like Taz also, she's pointing out like the kind of real positive messages that we get, but then sometimes we'll get people being like, hi, like, what does sustainability mean to you? Or something that's kind of like, let me Google this for you. It's, okay, maybe not that, just what does sustainability mean to you? But it's like, hi, are there any charity shops in my area? I live in Blackrock. It's like, yeah, let me just go to Google. And you want to be nice to everyone and be appreciative of the fact that they're following you or they're engaging with your stuff. But then as well, you'll get people who are just actually like giving out to you about something. Say for the example, the person who was saying don't be saying non-preachy or whatever, and like that sucks a lot of energy out. Trying to be like, first of all, there's kind of the shock and the kind of upset that someone is. Sometimes they'll be pretty angry about whatever it is that they're giving out about, and then you have to like spend hours trying to create this message that is like politically correct, not insulting them back, but also like standing your ground. And just so much time goes into those kind of moments as well.
And you'd be surprised, like we don't get a lot of hate, but we get some. And it's like we're two fun-loving gals who are preaching the world of sustainability. I'm like, what's there to hate? But people find stuff to hate.
The thing you were saying there about taking a month off and being sort of afraid to end up on a podcast where someone asks you a question and you don't know what to say, and always being kind of learning new things. Like for me, that's one of it. That kind of ties in with the approach of not coming across as consistently preaching this stuff that everyone needs to pay attention to, because it would probably be easier for you guys to do that. Mm-hmm. It's easy to curate a social media account where everything is like pristine and it's like, this is the message and this is just it, and you just have to listen to it. And then I think that maybe kind of creates a bit of a disconnect eventually for people. But it's whenever people feel like they're following other human beings who are in the process of learning about things, who are when you're trying your best and just have all of the same characteristics as any other human, like sometimes nailing it, sometimes not nailing it, sometimes need to take a break, sometimes like doing loads of work. And for me, like that's kind of one of the things that I think that like how come I ended up following you in the first place. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's what I was going to say.
We're glad that we come across as humans and not robots. Yeah. Taz and Geraldine,
but like, I'm so glad as well that like that is something I think that has benefited us. People have seen that actually it's two flawed women at the helm of this, because I mean I think a fear of being, again, this is like I'm terrified that I'm going to say something wrong or like not know the answer, but also I'm so terrified of getting cancelled. I'm like, oh my god, we're going to do something, someone's going to see like I don't know, a penny's bag at the back of my kitchen, and then I'm done. Like that's the end of us. So I think because there is this cancel culture online and so much of what we do is online that I'm like, and equally I'm terrified. Sorry, I've got a lot of fears. I'm so scared that Instagram is going to shut down, because that's all we are. Like, I mean, if Instagram goes, so are we. We're gonzos.
Yeah, it's honestly the fear of being like last year, actually around Christmas time last year, Geraldine and I like vegetarian 99.9% of the time, but around Christmas time last year, we were working in our old office space at Tower Building, and we took an early lunch. We're like, feck it, let's go get a feast. And I got a charcuterie board. Who the hell do I think I am? And Geraldine got a burger, okay? And we were sitting outside the Gilliton restaurant in Dublin, like on the street, and we're like, if somebody walks by and takes a picture of us, we are done for. Like me with like a pig in 17 forms.
But I should give you some context. Like I don't genuinely, I'm not a big meat fan anyway, and like I would never get a burger. But I think we had a really bad day, and we were just very much like, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's get meat. Let's just get whatever we can see on the menu that is like the opposite of what we do on our day-to-day life. I think we just need that bit of an escape. But exactly, I was terrified someone was going to like take a photo. I think that it was the days of bloggers in veils that someone might have been like, those girls.
What did you just learn about whenever you just took the month off in January?
Oh, so I learned how to make banana bread, and I'm just joking. I did a couple of courses on decolonizing kind of education and trying to like look at climate justice and social justice, and look at kind of like the links between racial justice, climate justice, and environmental justice, and kind of looking at how the future of sustainability needs to be intersectional, essentially, and how kind of maybe the sustainability movement has been quite whitewashed, and the people who are really feeling the effects of climate change are mostly people of colour. So just kind of like looking at that through a new lens, and trying to, that's kind of like in the hope that in the next year or so, you know, the movement will become more diverse and inclusive, and kind of we'll just begin thinking of it not just kind of on home soil. It kind of helped me to understand how, you know, we're not feeling the effects of climate change per se here, but our actions, our carbon emissions, for example, could be causing, mass desertification in places, that is then therefore causing mass migration, that is therefore causing climate refugees who are coming to Ireland and maybe put in a direct provision centre. It's like trying to close the loop between how our environmental actions, our lack of environmental actions, is actually going to have such an effect down the line, and it's affecting us right now in communities right now.
Yeah. And then I suppose I don't know if you've heard of this online course kind of site called FutureLearn, but they have loads of different online courses, like from like a huge range of different subjects. So I did one on sustainable fashion, would you believe? But our bread and butter. But actually, I suppose like when we started off, it was 2.5 years ago, and facts change fast. And I felt kind of like, I think both of us felt that we were coasting off a lot of the kind of education that we would have done at the very start of our work. And we were like, okay, I think we should make sure that we're always at the forefront of the latest developments or information or facts. So I did that. And I also did a lot of, I don't know how I fell down this hole, but I'm glad I did. It was about kind of like the sustainability of like electrics and electronics, and kind of, I don't know if you've ever heard of this premature obsolescence.
Yeah, planned obsolescence, isn't it? Kind of like where they plan, it's guaranteed that your washing machine is going to break after a couple of thousand uses and then it's gone.
Yeah, I feel like I say that phrase now so carefully, because I was talking to my dad and I was like, channeled with all this energy and passion, being like, Dad, it's not cool, premature. But I was saying premature convalescence. I was like, have you heard of premature convalescence? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, it's awful. It's like these brands making stuff that's like purposely going to, fail you and break or whatever. He's like, no. I think you're thinking of something else. I was like, no, premature convalescence. And he was like, convalescence, isn't that when people are like dying and they're being looked after in hospice care? I was like, sorry, wrong word. So anyway, learning all about that, getting the words wrong, but learning a lot about the kind of the importance then, I suppose, of circularity and making stuff to last. And the repair economy, I think, as well, was another kind of big part of that. And the fact that, these businesses that are trying to repair people's phones are actually getting hounded by the big electronic companies, or like, the Apples or whatever, because they know what a threat it would be if repair became the done thing, as opposed to just buying new all the time.
Is repair culture kind of on a decline over the last number of years?
Yeah, I suppose, like, I mean, it makes you, if you just think of like the way phones were used to be made, the Nokia 3310s or whatever, the bricks that literally you could like fling them out of a tallest building in Ireland and it would, probably fall to the ground and the ground would break and the phone would be perfectly intact because they were made to be so long lasting. Whilst now phones are made and, most people's phones would break within 3 years. And yet the cost and the effort that is required to get stuff fixed is so high that people just perceive it to be like there's no point in it. So people are far more likely to buy new as opposed to get things repaired. And the same goes for white goods. So that would be like, your dishwasher, your washing machine, all those kind of products as well. I don't know how many times you've ever had a plumber come in or electrician when any of those objects are broken, and they'll kind of more than likely say, like, you'd be better off just to get new instead of me repairing this, because it's going to cost you like a fair whack of the price of buying new that it would if I was to fix this.
But that goes for like fashion as well. It goes for loads of different industries. Like, if you buy a shirt in a high street shop for €5 and a button falls off it, why the hell would you sew a button back on? You just go in and get another shirt that's €5. And I think like the repair, like the kind of the habit of repairing is definitely on the incline, unfortunately. And I think it's because because it's like a loss of connection. We're not connected to things anymore. We're not connected to the people who are making our clothing, so we don't really have any value in them. And like that even goes for like food. We're not connected to the soil that is making our food. We're not connected to where carrots are coming from, so we'll just throw them out. Like if you know how long and how hard it is to grow a carrot, you'll never throw one out. If you know how much effort it is to make a shirt, you'll always sew the button back on. All that kind of stuff. It's just kind of a loss of connection, unfortunately. And like the idea that we always need new is better.
It sounds like that kind of connection that you're talking about is somewhat related to what you were talking about there, about the stuff you were learning in January in regards to closing the loop and learning about what impact our collective actions have could potentially on the other side of the world. Like that kind of brings you into the realm of politics and kind of global politics in a way. I'm curious about where that kind of sits with the sustainability movement, because that was something that myself and Anya Gorman ended up talking about on the episode that we did, was that it could be really easy just to fall into the view of like, get a keep cup, put your recycling in it, and then that's sustainability. But how does it tie in with the global scale?
Yeah, so like I think that's it's so important, and that's kind of something that we are, we're trying to learn more about as well. It's like the change has to be systemic for sure. Like not only just systemic in terms of like Irish politics, but like in terms of like global politics for sure. And I did a bit of research there recently into the Paris Climate Agreement, and just kind of like looking at that and how we are going to make the world fair in terms of like emission reduction and in terms of, environmentalism. And, in terms of like us rich economies, the UK, Ireland, America, who have built their economy off the back of burning fossil fuels for years and years and years and years and years. And then we're looking at these developing countries and shunning them for using these fossil fuels, that are going out into the atmosphere, and, realizing that like, that's not fair. We have to either pay them to help them build their economy without fossil fuels or all this kind of stuff. So that's something that we're definitely learning about more and more, and something that we want to get involved with more in terms of like policy and systemic change, because there's only so much that we can do. But we also feel like from the ground up, the reason we encourage people to quit fast fashion or try to go vegetarian for a day a week, or use your keep cup, is because it's almost like a gateway. If people take on these kind of habits, then they are more likely to take an interest in environmentalism. They are maybe more likely to email their TD or sign a petition. Once you pop, you can't stop. So like, maybe the immediate action of using a keep cup instead of using a disposable coffee cup is a drop in the ocean. It might lead to something else. It may lead to you reading an article about the bleaching of coral reefs, and therefore leading onto your TD, whatever it may be. It's kind of like a tiered approach.
That little explainer that you put up about the Paris Agreement the other day, I think that kind of stuff is really useful as well, because from a home point of view, it's easy to fall into be like, fuck, well, there's no point in me putting my recycling out when literally like the world is just completely bollocks, and we're just like pulling all the resources out on an enormous global scale. Like, what difference is it going to make if I like just put this like piece of paper in the wrong bin or something like that? But when things are broken down like that, and it's like easily kind of a bit more easily understood, or you can see it a bit clearer, it does kind of like says, well, actually, it seems like there is more point in doing kind of like individual efforts then, whenever it's balanced with an understanding of what's happening, or the big kind of like Paris agreements and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Because even like we would always say, like genuinely, like our whole like belief system is like we believe people are inherently good. Okay, people want to do better, and it's just a case of like they've been fed this lie that they have to buy more to be more of value. I know innately, but what we would always say is that people are good. They want to do better where they can, but it's just the whole issue is so huge that it's almost like it's too big to even start at any one point. So they're just not going to engage, or they're just not engaging, or they haven't up to this point. But we find that when we kind of, and not to say that it's like people are stupid, but like when we spoon feed them the information that makes them stop in their tracks and say, Jesus Christ, this is actually such a bigger issue, or like something that I didn't realize, if I just do that, then that can really impact this issue, or that can really, make things better or whatever. So by kind of really breaking things down and make that a little bit more digestible, we found that has really kind of appealed to this big market of people that might not have necessarily engaged with, say, the Greta Thunbergs, because what they were talking about maybe was too complicated for someone who hadn't even started using keep cups, so to speak. So we'd be able to kind of break things down and really present it in a way that, might be a little bit like whimsical at times, or like, say the meme aspect, or kind of the color, or whatever it is. But it's just, and if we can appeal to that circle of people that haven't kind of engaged from the efforts of other people who are equally worthwhile, but maybe just their approach hasn't had that same appeal. I think that's where we tend to fit in. That's like kind of because it's not that we're saying that everyone, these are such heavy topics that, you need to be serious about them. There's a time and a place to be serious and to give it the weight that it deserves. But at the same time, that doesn't appeal to a lot of people. So if we can kind of presented in a way that's kind of fun, kind of silly at times, then and it still has that effect of getting people involved and engaged, then like I'm happy out.
Is there an element of consumerism now surrounding the sustainability movement in and of itself?
Yeah. Oh, like huge. I was actually just about to say there, we should probably put out a disclaimer here that this episode isn't sponsored by Keep Cup, because we said Keep Cup about 100 times. Oh, 100%. It's like, okay, I'll tell you how you can be sustainable. Buy a bamboo cutlery, get a bamboo toothbrush, buy your eco toothpaste, get your nice fancy Keep Cup, your aluminium bottle that costs €35. You know, it's like, the solution isn't buying more. You know, the solution is not reinventing the wheel here. All of these new sustainable products, like, they grind our gears. Like, there is, again, a time and a place, and a lot of them are, you know, swaps that will last you a lifetime, for example. But like, the key to this is looking to the past. You know, it's like, what were we doing before we got to this catastrophic level of climate change? Like, our grannies were sewing buttons back on. We were using mugs. You know, we were, you know, using bottles, whatever it may be.
We didn't waste food.
We didn't waste food. It's not about, you know, reinventing and getting all of these new products. It's actually going back to the way it is. Like, bring a mug to a coffee shop, you know, keep reusing, you know, a plastic water bottle and stick it in the dishwasher every now and then, you know, like, just get, like, mend tears in your jumper. You don't have to buy, you know, a recycled polyester jumper, whatever it may be. If you have a jumper from Pennies that you love and you wear it every single day and has loads of holes in it, mend them. You know, you don't need to go and buy something that's brand new. It's like hugely so. And like, that's an issue that we're going to be facing more and more in the time to come. As well as greenwashing, all of these companies, again, just trying to sell us stuff and looking for an avenue to sell us stuff now that we are becoming more wary of consumerism.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times people have been like, honestly, you guys should bring out like a sustainable fashion, you know, line, or like, you should bring out like Keep Cups and say like the useless project. I'm like, our whole thing is using less. We can't just like produce more. That completely goes against what we're doing. So yeah, definitely we try to err on the side of actually, you know, kind of reuse as opposed to, you know, even recycling. It's reusing. It's like the kind of pre-cycling.
Taz, you just took the answer to the next question I was going to ask you, which was about the lessons that we could get from the times that have gone by. How has the last year or so, like, as far as you guys can see, changed our perception of sustainability, or people's willingness to engage with issues around sustainability?
Well, I think that like over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think probably more so in lockdown 1.0, edition 1, we saw people becoming more connected. I feel like even people making banana bread, making sourdough, starting vegetable patches, like just getting connected again to kind of like what it is to live a daily life without, you know, being bombarded with all of this external stuff all the time. Like, even on a personal level, like, I started a vegetable patch for the first time, and like I previously mentioned, like, I will never top and tail a carrot ever again. You know, like, it's learning where things come from. Like, I turned feral for the first lockdown. I was barefoot for like 3 weeks.
I can vouch for this. It happened.
But I think that was really important. You know, people making banana bread, as ridiculous as it sounds, like, just getting back to kind of like the basics, slowing down and kind of like taking stock of how unsustainable life was becoming, the speed and the pace at which things were moving. Like, it simply couldn't continue. Like, we couldn't have just kept going and kept going and kept going. Like, the whole world was going to combust. It probably is going to combust, but
any minute now.
But I think that was really important. And also, like, you know, even when like you pinpoint like specific things, the fact that more people are working from home and like people are seeing that that's now a possibility, I think is great.
On that vein of people working from home, like, well, I suppose just people spending so much more time, whether it's working or just being in lockdown, I think as well that has had one positive effect in terms of people are realizing how much waste they're producing, and not, I mean, bodily waste, I mean like packaging and whatnot. So, you know, people, as opposed to just like being out and about and, you know, buying this here and then throwing it in the bin there and whatever, and or else you're like, you know, throwing out food or packaging and stuff in the workspace. You're not the one taking out the bags or the bin loads. So I think people kind of started to recognize, oh my God, like, there's really so much plastic, first of all, that I'm like, you know, buying and throwing out through my food, and like, you know, and then all the other kind of different rubbish that they're producing. But I mean, I think that was one thing that people started to recognize and kind of try to figure out how they could reduce it in a way that I don't think they would have had they kind of continued their previous way of life.
Do you guys practice for your videos and stuff and the content that you're making? You know the way when you're making a video on social media, like, does it just come out like that, or are you like doing loads of takes?
Oh,
loads. That's something that gets me annoyed when I'm like, people think that probably is just like, just like fling up a video and then you go out the rest of your day. No. Hours. Like way too much time than I would ever admit.
But we have fun. Honest to God, we've such crack doing
sometimes.
But have you guys found yourselves having to kind of curate these characters now? Like your online presence?
I think that, like, to be honest, I think we're very real versions of ourselves online, which is, it's really enjoyable. I actually think I'm probably a more real version of myself on the Useless Project than I am even on my own personal account, to be honest. But
I think we're going to say in real life. I was like, before Anna's getting like a therapy session.
But yeah, me.
I just feel like it's only with you, Anna, that I'm ready to.
I think that I forget what I was going to say now.
Are we creative versions of ourselves? No, I think we're very honest, and I think as well we keep each other very grounded. Like, we're like, you're some idiot. Like, what, I saw that video you put up yesterday. Don't you look fantastic with your little eyeliner? Oh God, we do keep each other quite grounded, and we think we don't get ahead of ourselves as well. We're not too precious about stuff. Like, for example, one of us might put hours or an entire afternoon into putting this post about, say, the or the Paris Climate Agreement, or a meme, or whatever it is, and it will flop. And like, we'll kind of be like, yeah, that did kind of shit. As opposed, and we can just get on with it and be able to accept that, like, there's the moments when we'll really praise each other and be like, you did a good job there, to being like, God, we did an awful webinar there. The people got absolutely no energy off us. I mean, like, I'd say they're going to want their money back, but there's the kind of the highs and the lows. And I think that keeps us grounded and it keeps us real. So I do think we're...
Keep it real, yo.
What's it like working together? Like, what are the ups and downs of working together?
Yeah, so again, like, generally, like, we feel like parodies of ourselves sometimes. Like, first of all, the conversations we have are like, oh my God, if someone was to peek in at us having this conversation, either think that we're doing like an ad for, like, because like, say the other day,
look at this
sustainability. Sorry, so this is a fantastic. Sorry, I know we keep talking about it, but this is a fantastic heat cup. Just the size of it and the girth is fantastic, or whatever it is. Okay, and like, someone would come in and be like, are they actually praising this heat cup just in their own free time, and they're not even getting paid for it? Like, what? Why are they doing this? Like, I can't believe this is real. But we genuinely are first of all passionate about what we're doing, so we kind of live and breathe it in that sense. But we get on really, really well, and sometimes we'll surprise each other by that. I'm just looking at Taz being like, oh my God, what is she going to say? I'm saying we get on really well.
No, I think like we get on so well together, but over the course again of the past 2.5 years that we have been working together, I think it's like we become more familiar with how each other work, and knowing that each of us can at any point say, look, I'm not up for working today for whatever reason. Can we take a half day today? I'm not up for it. Like, those kind of things are really important, and we do check in with each other all the time, and if I want to take a week off, if I'm struggling with something, I do so, and Geraldine will do the same, and we'll pick up the slack for each other. I think at the beginning, because we started the company, we didn't know each other. It's just so gas to think about. Like, we honestly didn't know each other. That, like, I didn't think I could say, look, I'm really struggling this week. I'm really anxious this week. Like, would you mind if we had late mornings? I felt like I couldn't say that, and vice versa. But we've kind of like come to a position now, and I think because the last year has been such a shit show, we're able to be a lot more honest with each other. That, like, we might not feel like doing front-facing. Like, I might go through like a couple of weeks where I'm like, look, I'm in the pits. I don't want to do any video stuff this week. And Geraldine will say, look, I'll do the video work. You do the emails, or whatever it may be. It's like finding that kind of balance.
Can I just pinpoint that specific example? And I know when you messaged Taz, you made reference to spuds. Was that in reference to a potato video we did?
Yes.
So we did this potato video. It was a branded work, and it was for potato.ie. Would you believe it? There's an entire website.
That's an actual website.
Honestly, the dream job. Like, just to get it, like, our agent messaged us and like, girls, would you be interested in doing a campaign for potatoes.ie? We're like, is Aston Kutcher here? Like, where? Like, is this? Are we about to be pumped?
But just to give you a bit of kind of like a reality check in terms of, like, really, we mean what we say in terms of. So we were making this video, and I can't remember what was happening, but I was just in a bit of a funk, and like, we were trying to record a video promoting potatoes, and for some reason I just couldn't deal, and I kept making mistakes, and I ended up crying, and Taz had to take on the entire video, and like, so I had to be recording it, and she was like, potatoes this and potatoes that, and I was like but you know, it was just people, I suppose, they wouldn't realize that, you know, why I wasn't in the video was because I was upset about something stupid and I couldn't talk about potatoes in that moment. But that's, you know, we're lucky that Taz will do it when I can't, and then, you know, again, vice versa. But that being said as well, like, we had a tough few months over lockdown 1 when we were like, there was days that I was like, okay, we're done. So we're not going to be able to stay afloat. And also just there was so much pressure in terms of how do you keep things going when, and I'm sure so many people listening to this would have felt the same in their respective jobs or just even kind of daily living. But like, it just puts such a pressure and a strain. And I think that's been our pit of the last 2.5 years, those kind of weeks and months. And then thankfully we're able to kind of realize how lucky we are now having experienced that, and we're like, God, you know, we really need to appreciate how well we get on and the fact that we do continue to have the weeping silent laughter.
Do you guys come up with these like little pet kind of sustainability projects and then become obsessed with them while, you know, you discover something new or something?
So say, like, for example, like what do we become obsessed with sustainability wise?
As in, so just like, specific kind of areas of sustainability.
Do you guys find yourselves being like, all of a sudden go down the rabbit hole of sustainable jewelry, and one person will just be like all about sustainable jewelry, and then the other person will go down the rabbit hole of sustainable shoes or something like that?
Definitely. Like, Geraldine did a deep dive during the summer on bees. And I swear to God, like, I had to be like, okay, Geraldine, listen to me. I know about the fecking bees. Shut up about the bees.
Yeah, because we take turns in like doing the deep dive into whatever it is. And even say when we took the month off in January, like, we wanted to specifically, individually, to learn separate stuff so that we could both bring more to what our offering is. But yeah, definitely each one of us would kind of do the deep dive and then kind of be flat out talking about it, and like in any way we're bringing the conversation back to the thing that you just learned. So it's like, oh yeah, so like, what do you want to get for lunch? It's like, oh, I don't know, but did you hear about premature obsolescence? Because it's really impacting everything you do. When you wash your dishes, that's going to be in the dishwasher, and that's actually going to break on purpose.
And where do you see the project going in the future?
So like, top of the agenda is world domination. Yeah, I know. I think so. Actually, what we had planned to do, and hopefully what we will do someday down the line, is basically like a larger scale event, maybe like a multiple day event where we festival maybe, where we kind of like do loads and loads of different workshops, classes, kind of like demonstrations on sustainability. So, you know, all of our events kind of over the course of 3 days. So we'll have talks and panel discussions and hands-on music, workshops, tunes, the whole shebang. So that's kind of what was taking a lot of our energy pre-COVID.
Summer 2020 was supposed to be our summer, our year. Lol.
But hopefully that will happen down the line, you know. So that's kind of like something that we're tinkering on in the background. Also doing loads more webinars and workshops and kind of like upping our offerings there. I don't know what else. What else do we plan, G?
I mean, beekeeping would be my wish, but I'm not sure how's going to go along with it. No, I don't know.
I think more immediately, like, our plan for the year is definitely to try to get more involved, as we said, with like systemic change, policy, governmental kind of change, all that kind of stuff is maybe a more personal plan for ourselves, and to make the sustainability movement more accessible. I think like immediately that's all we can plan for. Like, we keep planning for these events like post lockdown, but it's kind of getting to a stage now where, like, you know, let's just plan for the next month. You know, there's no point trying to figure out what our next event is going to be. We just kind of have to work with the deck of hands that the hand of cards we've been given.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm glad you said that about the policy in particular, because we really felt that, I think, at the end of last year, I suppose, like, you know, in fairness to us, we had been an events company, and then COVID happened, and then we had to bring everything online, and we had to kind of like, you know, pivot. Isn't that what all the what you call Silicon Valley people say? Pivot. So we had to pivot the business and bring it all online. Okay, that was great. And then it's kind of, we teach it into the realm of like living for the gram, I think, and realizing, okay, people love the tutorials and they want to learn like how to embroider and how to, you know, upcycle a skirt, or, you know, this stuff like that was very whimsical and maybe kind of flowery. But by the end of the year, we were like, look, this, you know, we're not going to change the world by embroidering a flower over a stain on your lapel. Like, you know, although it's quite handy and good to know. But it's not going to move mountains or change the world. So I think again, like just having that reflection time in the start of January or the start of the year, and realizing, okay, we actually do want to do something. We've got this amazing, huge community now. This great a platform to have actual, really profound impact if we use it correctly, or to the best of our advantage. So we are focusing big time on policy, and hopefully kind of going to get some campaigns going that will really bump sustainability up on the agenda, I think.
We hope.
Class, lads.
I feel like we've got a little bit spiely, or I definitely got a little bit spiely and rambly, but thank you so much for having us. I think that was just a reflection of how excited we were to be here.
Yeah, and honestly, Anna, we're such big fans of this podcast, and I think it really shines a light on the amazing work that's happening in Ireland at the moment. Amazing activism, but even storytelling and creative and art that's happening in the country right now. I recommend this podcast to so many people because I think it really shines a light on what we have, how amazing of a nation we are, and how the people who are in this nation are really doing amazing things with life. So really, truly, we adore this podcast.
Yeah, we do. But I feel like just there, you're like, my name is Taz Kelleher, and I endorse this podcast.
I'm going to put that at the top of the show now from now on. Just that little clip at the start, at the opening.
One thing before I go, I have to say, my best friend Neve is the biggest fan of Rebel Matters. She's a patron in New Zealand. She put me onto this podcast, and I'd say she's put on every single person that she knows.
This episode of the Rebel Matters podcast was presented by me, Anna O'Carolan, and produced by Vicky Langan. The Rebel Matters podcast is 100% funded by our followers over on Patreon, and we are very grateful for that support. If you'd like to become a patron, then you can find us on www.patreon.com/Rebel Matters, where you can see the various tiers of support that you can choose from. Every single bit of support that we get here at the Rebel Matters podcast means a lot to us and really does help to keep the show on the road. Anyway, that's all from me this week. So, Gajian Kedarella Akarja, Slan Gafoil, Agus Kenny Fury.